Hello, and welcome back to the Quantum Health Connection podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm your host, Vanessa Bolden, with my wonderful, incredible co-host, Heather Crimson, and we're here for another episode today for you. We're going to talk about medical gaslighting. I think this is such a great topic and focus to talk about, and also talk about just like how to simplify and trust your body, because the more and the longer I've been on a healing journey, the more I've moved towards those things. And I want to, share that knowledge with you guys today. I know Heather does too. And we want to just thank you so much for tuning in, and we really, really appreciate it. You can tune in on YouTube, Bright Light Wellness, and Enlightened Mood as well. And if you ever have the chance, please write a written review or a 5-star rating is so much appreciated, because we just want to help share this knowledge and reach more people, right? So we really do appreciate you guys doing that. And yeah, Heather, I'm ready to chat with you today about this whole medical gaslighting. I don't know about you, but when I got really sick, I was through the ringer with that. And it was just like the thing that really drove me the most insane. It was like the whole paradigm of you're right, you're wrong. I know what's wrong with you. I know how to fix you. Like this very like high up thing from doctors that really just kind of irked me, like they knew more about what I needed than I knew myself, which is so not true, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very rich topic and actually a very necessary, I would say urgent topic for people nowadays as more and more people are getting sicker, Vanessa. There's sudden heart attacks. The epidemic of chronic disease is like wildfire. It's just really sad. And at the same time, I think it's a clarion call for us to really stop and take a pause and look inward and see what is this actually saying to us, this issue around how we get well and how we choose to embrace our healing journey. Because I've been there too, Vanessa. I have spent thousands of dollars on functional medicine and things like that, and buying tons of supplements and doing these protocols for SIBO, for all of this kind of thing. And nothing actually made me better. And think, in fact, I felt worse most of the time, because then I would not get resolution or remediation, or none of my symptoms would be alleviated. And then the mental emotional piece would kick in of like, what am I doing wrong? So I think that all, let's just say, first of all, none of this is medical advice. Like, you need to find, we'll talk about this later, but you need to find someone who you really resonate with. I think that's really important. But we're not telling you to stop working with anyone or anything like that. Like, you have to take this seriously and feeling into it. But anyway, so the harder that I would try to look outward, Vanessa,
Mhm.
at the solution or what's the problem, or figuring it out in my head and then looking desperately for someone to save me, like the more disempowered I felt, and then the more I ended up feeling like a victim.
Yeah, 1,000,000%, because you're always looking outside of yourself. You're looking for the guru who can save you, right? And that is huge. It's huge to know that you have the power within you to heal yourself, and to know like everything you need is within you. So I don't know, like I used to go, like when I really got really sick, like my health really crashed, I went to all the doctors, and they run all they ran, like I'm talking about conventional, like I started with conventional medicine, and they would run all like the blood work and do all the things. And I was like, here I was, like extremely debilitated, extreme chronic pain, all of these symptoms, insomnia, severe depression. And I would go to all these doctors, and I would do all this blood work. And literally, they come back and be like, there's nothing wrong. Like every conventional doctor was like, there's nothing wrong with you. And then you're like, they kind of like are looking at you like, well, this must be all in your head, right? Like, and then that's it's such an unvalidating feeling. It's such a feeling of feeling like alone and scared, right? Because you're like, I know something's wrong, but you're just not seeing it. And I feel like energetically things show up before they would show up on like blood work, right? But I felt very dismissed, very rejected. I would try to like ask questions and be like, well, what about my diet? Or what about this? Or like, is there anything else I can do besides this? Or they want to just give me all the meds. And I had left tons of allopathic doctors crying. Like I'd call my husband, I'd call my mom, I'd be like, I don't know what to do. They said they don't have any answers for me. and I felt very understood and like no one could help me.
You
And
felt so misunderstood, right? So
so
misunderstood.
misunderstood. And then with the medications that they were recommending didn't really resonate either. Like I'm like, this doesn't feel right. And then I would reject that. And then I was the difficult patient, right? Because I didn't want to follow their protocol. I didn't want to follow the medication. I didn't want to take that. I was like, this doesn't feel right. And I feel like that inner wisdom and resonance is so important for us to pay attention to. They just because they were the white coat, just because they, are in the higher position of power, doesn't mean that they know more than what you mean. And it wasn't right for me to take those medications. I'm glad I mean, I tried some of them because I was so desperate at the point with the pain, but I mean, I know I've told the story before about how I sat there with the antidepressants and on the table, and my husband's like, I think you need to take those. And I was like, I just can't. Like, I just,
Wow, I love that you really listened to and heeded that inner voice. And those knowings are part of the healing journey, right? Tapping into your body's wisdom, it is going to let you know. And it's hard to sometimes, depending on where you're at in the state of mind, to hear that. But for you, I love that it was just like, no,
it
right?
was such a knowing. It was like, I put them in my field, and I didn't know anything about a field back then. And I was like, wrong. No, like it was like such a strong feeling in my body. And it's funny, I had some genetic testing done with the same doctor that you did years later. And not that I believe genetic testing is the answer to anything either, but I would have it said in my genetic testing that I would have negative effects from antidepressants. Like
Well,
it
there's just some extreme validation for you. Look at
yeah,
that. Isn't that so interesting?
it was. I was like, my intuition knew that
Mhm.
that wasn't good for me to take. Like I would,
So there's a little bit of maybe helpfulness in or not, but in a lot of the things there can be like the genetic testing, like it validated you. But
yeah.
well, it's interesting how you described, the feeling of being in these environments, and that to me, functional medicine just sort of replicates that, but a bit
Mhm.
more friendly, a bit more soft, right? A bit more inviting,
Mhm.
less, clinical and dry. But I remember reading a book in the early 90s, Vanessa, when I was first deep in my healing journey, whatever, doing this crazy ass macrobiotic diet, which is a Japanese diet. Hardcore, right? I mean, I was really in it hardcore. And this book was interesting, it was about raw milk. I wish I could remember the name of it. I have to go find it.
I like that.
Gumpert, I don't remember. Anyways, he was talking about how the doctors are like the priests and then
Mm,
the drug is the sacrament. I mean, it's that sort of, I don't know the right word to describe it, but it's that kind of
vibe.
you
Yeah.
know, people hold it in such high regard.
Yeah.
We're so dependent on it. Like there's nothing, and yes, emergency medicine is amazing.
Mm,
We do need that.
100%.
As far as chronic illness and how to actually become healthy, it's horrible. So, but when you go in there with these chronic health issues like you and I've had, and then you're treated as if you don't know anything and you're just, a machine and a blob of, organs and whatnot. It's just so dehumanizing. And I think that it's a really interesting dichotomy because people are so scared of it and yet they really embrace it because what else are they going to do?
Right. Because they don't know they have any other options. They don't know how
Right.
where else to go. And when you were talking, it made me also think about um it was so decompartmentalized, right? I was going to so many different doctors and none of them were talking to each other and none of them were putting the pieces together and none of them were seeing me as one. Like they didn't see it as one greater imbalance. They saw it, oh, you have gastro issues and you have urogenitary issues and you have, mind issues. Like they weren't putting all that together. And we're not separate parts. We're not a closed system. We are an open system where everything is communicating all the time. And that is such a broken piece of the medical system. I feel like, especially yes, emergency care, like you said, great, wonderful, go there, do it, have it. But when it comes to chronic care, you have to realize that it's all connected, right? So that.
Right. And case in point for that is when I went to see a woman who was a naturopath
Mhm.
back in Monterey, and she was so nice. But like when you said you were in these appointments, very much tearful and whatnot, I would think it was at one of my lowest points. Just the what I thought was depression and just fatigue, right? I didn't know if it was just depression or what was going on. And first of all, I'm the kind of person where I'm just so fed up with allopathy that, and even naturopathy, whatever. And so she was running late, and I'm just like, I was going to get up and leave. And she like runs out. Okay, okay. I'm like, what is that? I don't feel respected. If you need more time with your person, then you should have told me beforehand, because I just have had it. So then I go in and I'm already agitated. And then the prescription was cortisol pills, tablets.
Yep.
And it's like that is the same as if you go to the allopathic physician and now we're going to give you this sort of whatever it is, I don't know, some drug. So the cortisol wasn't what I needed. Now, years later, I realized that I had severe circadian rhythm mismatch. Right? My mitochondria were tanking. I was having all the symptoms because of that. I was
Yep.
so sunlight deficient, and the
Mhm.
stress level was so high from all the different things that I had been experiencing and early trauma. And my cell danger response was like through the roof. So, all right, getting
Yeah.
that cortisol thing did absolutely nothing. And I could feel what was interesting though is I could see her in discomfort because she, I think, inherently knew that that was not going to help me. So I just have so much empathy and compassion for people who are trying to help, but it's like they only know what they know, right?
Well, that's a beautiful piece that you just brought in, like giving that empathy and compassion, because they only can do what they can do based on the knowledge that they have, right? They're doing best with the knowledge that they have. And I think that's true. I just think that knowledge needs to come out further about how, light, mitochondria, all of that. Like we need to talk, like they need to know that foundation as naturopathic doctors or as functional medicine doctors. And I'm hoping that podcasts like ours are going to bring that to their attention as using that, because a pill to fix your cortisol is never going to work, right? It's just a band-aid. It's if it does anything, which it probably won't, it probably will create further disruption. And the cortisol is so regulated by light and dark cycles, like it's huge. So that's really getting more to the root of the issue, right?
Yeah, but she
So
didn't know about that. And that's the thing about it is that, like, I don't want to say like our way's the right way, but what is the biology dictate? That's what is helpful is to look at the foundation. And so she did the test with, you do the cortisol saliva test, and mine was like totally inverted. My cortisol was high at night and then it was low during the day. So that was the issue. And then as soon as I started to practice, and thank God I found circadian biology. So as soon as I started to practice healing my light environment, that's the first time I started to get relief.
yeah,
Oh, and
yeah.
the other thing about gaslighting with doctors is that
Mm.
it's so interesting. Like I think that somewhere in their being, like the ones who are at least somewhat conscious understand that emotion is
Mm-hmm.
powerful and it's going to affect your physiology, but it's so disheartening and disempowering. They're like, oh, it's something emotional or psychological, or it's all in your head. It's like, yeah. And that actually is a huge thing and it's real. Right. And there actually used to be a disorder a diagnosis in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, which I hate that book. Let me just be clear. I don't use it anymore, but I had to back then when I was taking insurance, which unfortunately I did. It was awful. Haven't done that for many years, but still, I think it was somaticization disorder or something like that. I don't know if it's still a thing, but it was basically saying that your mental state is manifesting physical symptoms. Well, no shit, because we're
Obviously.
all connected, but they made it into something pathological. And now that I think about it, as we're talking, I'm like, oh my God, that's just how disconnected our health care system has become.
Yeah, it's really, really sad how disconnected that is. And that's why I love homeopathy so much. And when I got into homeopathy and started learning, and I was like, wow, I was like, this modality is actually putting the pieces together that your anxiety and your chronic diarrhea actually are related, right? And that your constipation and your suppressed emotions, those are related, right? Like it makes sense to me. I'm like, oh, ding dong, like the bell went off in my head. Like that makes so much more sense. And as I transitioned from allopathic to functional, the one thing that was better is I felt a little bit more heard, seen, and witnessed through the healing process. Like at least they would listen to me. And that is healing in itself. But there was, even though they were listening and that helped, um, that what I didn't really meet like practitioners they were listening, but they still were on that high horse where they thought that they were right and I was wrong, where they knew more, right? Or that they weren't really helping me like get into my body and like figure out, like helping me get on the path, right? I felt kind of like a little bit more judged, I guess, or like maybe criticized. But eventually I found practitioners that were much better, and they like actually were listening, and that was very healing. And then they actually were like, weren't judging me. They were being more empathetic, and they were validating my experience and giving me hope and support and telling me that like healing was possible, and they believed in me. Like that is healing in itself. And, I had practitioners, like I'm telling holistic practitioners, who like abandoned me because they didn't know what else to do. They were like, I don't know what, like they were like,
Oh yeah, I've had many of
just
times
like
that.
allopathic. They were like, and again, they just know what they know, but they were kind of like, I don't know what else to do. So, I have
But a
no,
lot of them do not want to admit that because they just aren't going to spend time there, right? It's going to make them have to think about what it is they're doing as healers. Like I had lab work done, and then no one called me back for months, and I finally called and said, where's my lab work? This is
yeah,
before I knew to ask for my own copies.
yeah,
Anyway, all she did was write on there, have you been tending sheep, or has she been tending sheep? And because I had some gut issues. And then they read that to me, and I'm thinking, that's it? And no, they offered me absolutely nothing. And I'm like, I went through all that, paid you, got the testing, and that's the question I get back, and then there's no direction or what. Okay, great. But the thing is I want to emphasize here
mhm,
that when you said energy early on, Vanessa, that's really the name of the game. Like
mhm,
our perception of health, our beliefs about health, our beliefs about what's possible for us, our trust in our body, our being able to self-attune are really what's going to dictate, right, our healing capacity and healing trajectory. So, what do I mean by that? Like, people have to be open, right? They have to be open to receiving the nurturing, to discerning which person's good for them, or what is it, how do they want to heal? Because here's the truth, and I've experienced this a lot in the past when I was doing psychotherapy, is like some people only want to have the quick fix. Like they're not open, right? They don't want to have to change. They want a pill, right? So there's this huge kind of, I think, is a really disempowering position that we've been conditioned into that you got to find your way out of, right? But so here's an example. Like I was actually in that place, kind of. Well, actually, I have to be honest. I was in that place. So I had a consult with Morley Robbins. Everybody knows Morley Robbins, right? The root cause protocol, right? So he does the magnesium guy. And I paid a lot of money for this. He was so kind, so gentle. We went through all the things, the hair tissue mineral analysis, all the things. He goes, at the end, he said, your issue is unresolved trauma. Like, and I had this little tantrum inside. I'm like, that's not the answer I wanted the protocol that's going to work for me. I want you to tell me what to do to magically make me better or morally. I didn't pay this much money for you to tell me that I need to work on my trauma. But deep down, I knew he was right. So I was pissed, right? But this is the thing. What was I open to receive? Did
yeah,
I
and
want
that
the
takes
truth?
time.
Right? Did I want the truth, or did I want to stay stuck in my victim mentality?
Yeah, and that takes time to shift that, I think, too. And I think the people that you work with can shift that also, whether they're holding that belief, that possibility, that healing is possible for you, and that they're holding that capacity for you, that space, right? That anything is possible. But I love that you shared that story because it's just such truth. We're not all ready, for that, to do that inner work, maybe, and that takes some time. Are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, you need to move a little closer because the wind is cutting you out a little.
The wind is getting windy out here, guys. I'm outside. Sorry. Put my mic closer. Is that better?
That's better. Thank you.
Yeah. So I also wanted to bring to the point too, is like one other thing that I felt like, because I felt like the gaslighting that only came from the allopathic, but it came from the functional. And when the protocols didn't work, what did they do to me? Which is really, they have to work on themselves, is there was like the blame and the shame. Well, I wasn't strict enough. I had to be stricter or more rigid on my diet. Oh my God, you ate a sweet potato? God forbid. Like, like I had to be stricter on the diet, or you're not on all those supplements yet. Well, I'm in the cell, I'm stuck in the cell danger response, even though I didn't know that at the time, and I can't take all these supplements, right? So like they would blame and shame me, and I kind of, then it felt like I was a failure, and like I wasn't doing a good enough job, right? Of the following the protocols, but the protocols were like just too intense, like for you to even follow, or like I couldn't, like they were making me sicker or making me worse, or I wasn't feeling good, or it was just too stressful to actually follow that. And it's like, I don't know, I think that is also a big part of what the opposite of what I try to do when I work with clients, basically. Never would blame or shame them if something that I told them to do doesn't go the way I had planned, or I would never like judge them. You know, it's you have to be, if you're in this healing space, you have to be empathetic, and you have to be validating, and you have to be understanding, and you have to be able to witness and hold space and hold possibility also. Like hold that possibility for your clients, because they may not have that possibility and that hope yet, but if you bring that, there's a resonance, there's a biofield connection, there's an energetic component to that. If you bring that resonance, that and that energy of that, yeah, I think that this is possible for you, that does actually make an impact, I believe.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful story you have of your own
Mhm.
healing journey when you were first validated deeply, thoroughly, you were really met where you were at. You were like, you were given hope when you started working with, your healing, I don't want to say provider, what's the better word? Practitioner. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd say healer, just
Yeah.
healer,
Healer.
and
I
you
like
were
that.
heard. And being heard, I think, is this first step, like you were saying, because what's going to help people start to feel calmer, have hope, not panic, right? And look inward is to calm down that cell danger response because our cells, our mitochondria are basically sensing the environment,
Mhm.
and there's a safe, not safe thing that they're registering. They're sensing the energy.
But
Your
that could be with people too.
No, I'm saying everything. Yeah, it's people. It's it's your inner state that you're generating. How that's interfacing with outside of you,
Yep.
right? And at the most quantum level, we're all vibrating energy, so it's all mixed up in a soup. But that whatever it is that you're experiencing internally and externally, somewhere or another, there has to be an quote unquote, an intervention made where we're going to just be with what's true for you now. So that's where the healing really begins, I think, is this sort of beautiful surrender and
Mm.
opening to, let's just acknowledge where you're at. Let's just really hear you. Let's validate how painful this is. And now let's see what's possible and where we want to go.
Yeah. And I think our mindset really plays a big role in that, like our own internal mindset. Like, so, following what resonates, right? Like we said before, but like also deciding who you work with and surrounding yourself with and like what's possible. Do they hold that space for you? But just remembering that you are really the infinite potential, and that healing is always possible, and your body is a self-healing machine. Like you have to have that knowing, I think, is important. Like it's wise, it's capable, like your body is always on your side, and every symptom that it puts out there is to keep you safe. It really is, and to keep you here and alive and going. Like there's not, the body's never against you, it's always working for you, right? And if that alone, that mindset shift is huge, right? That makes a huge difference on a healing journey. And then if you can believe that you can heal and you can see it and you can feel it, that's like where the magic is. Like, because people will talk about manifesting, and I had one. This was actually Carrie. This was actually Carrie. I didn't even pay her for this. We were just talking back and forth on Instagram before she was really big, and she answered her DMs, I guess. And we were chatting, and she's like, write yourself a letter and like to see yourself well, kind of thing. And I had done that. Like I did do it, and then it was like, but when you do that, like with like that manifesting it at believing, you have to really feel it and believe it for that to work, was my point.
Mhm.
Right? Like it's
Mhm.
not enough just to be like saying what you want and saying it in the future, but it's also like, can you really feel what that would feel like to be that person, right? Or to have that? Can you believe that that's possible for you? That is like another part, right?
Yeah, and it's not
Important.
placebo. People think it's
No.
placebo. Denitzer, just had this amazing woman on our podcast. She talks about the golden spiral,
Yeah.
and she's a homeopath and an intuitive and amazing. But in her book, Vanessa, I know you're reading it, but in her book, she gives a couple examples of people who just visualized themselves, like they literally would sit and
Mhm.
they would visualize their body healing. And then in a month or two, they were totally healed.
Yeah, well, didn't what's that famous guy did that, right? Who's in the he was hit by had a car accident or something, hit by on a bike, right? And he was hit by something. What is his
Oh, you're talking about Peter Levine.
No, I'm talking about Joe
Oh,
Dispenza.
oh, yeah, Peter Levine was hit by something else.
Yeah, but he had the visualization. He would actually like visualize all of his things working together again, right?
Joe
And
Dispenza. Okay.
yeah, and then it is about the feeling, like he would talk about that, how feeling that actually makes a difference, right? And I don't want to give people like a longer list of things to do on their healing journey because I also want to talk about simplifying things because I think that's really important because for me, and I, probably because I was living in the cell danger fear response, like more practitioners I saw, the more they would pile on things I had to do each day, right? It was like, okay, like, and I think that's the opposite of what people who are in a chronic illness journey need. Like, they need less, not more, more slowing down, more being present, more finding joy, trying to be in positive connections, right? And the last thing they need is like this really long checklist of things to do each day that, that are really it's too much, like it's not possible, like it's an unreachable goal, because I've definitely been there before where like healing is like your second job, right? And then it's like, well, that is probably not going to be, it's probably going to be counterproductive to your healing because it's creating more stress and more danger signals, honestly. So like I think slowing down, doing less, not more is what true healing is. So
So it's so unfortunate and actually tragic that so many of us have a real prohibition internally to resting, and
yeah.
we don't see it as something that is not just a luxury. And yes, for many people who are fortunate enough to be able to do it as a luxury, and I don't want to say it's a luxury, it's a privilege, I guess. It's I think it's a sacred need that we have. And yes, some people may not be able to do it if they have to work however much to survive, and then they have kids and all whatnot and all the things. And at the same
That
time,
keeps it, I don't want to interrupt you, but that keeps us such in the survival mode
no,
instead
I
of
know, and that's a bigger issue that we're not
it's a
addressing today. But
societal issue. It's a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
societal issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another issue of one of the downsides of how we've constructed our modern living. But anyway,
Yeah.
so if you have that privilege, it is a sacred duty, I think, to be able to just be and notice how that is, because we resist that. And the more we are in a fight mode, like I've got to fight to find the right solution, the right provider, the right supplements, whatever. I've got to push myself, especially a lot of women I've worked with, they're so hard on themselves, right? They're
Oh,
so,
yes.
so hard. They're vicious. That's the only way that I'll get stuff done, or whatever, do the things I need to do, is I really just like beat myself up. Well, guess what? That is actually creating an internal level of distress because of this massive amount of tension that you're generating, and a being sort of at war with yourself, if you will. And that is going to really compromise your energetic vitality and your therefore your mitochondrial function. Like everything kind of bogs down because you have such intense, so I don't like the word negative emotional energy, but it's just like it's a draining and a dark energy of emotion that is really suppressing your body's healing capacity, burning up all of your energy, making your mood and mind even more negative. So it's really interesting how much we fight just being able to do nothing.
Fighting against is such the problem. And I don't think that's talked about enough in this space. And it creates so much stress and so much pressure, right? I felt the pressure of having to be perfect in my healing journey. And practitioners kind of put that on me, though. Like I felt that. But I'm sure I did it to myself too, because I have that kind of mindset, right? I have that within me. But that's like when you'll see, like, from like, gotta go harder, gotta restrict more, gotta do more, right? They'll think that because it's like they see it as like it's a really a lack, right? So they're trying to like fill it, like, okay, I'll just do more red light therapy, which probably is the more benign, but I'll do more cold therapy, I'll restrict my diet more, I'll exercise more, I'll fast more. And it's like I see all of that as like such a fight because they're totally, and I've been there, like, I want you to know, as I'm saying this, I have done all of these things. And that is because you're like overriding your body's wants and needs, and then that is driving more chronic stress and amplifying the cell danger response, and then that creates more stress, and then the mitochondria are actually working less efficiently, and then you're actually, not healing, because it's just a whole stress loop, and this whole,
Why don't we
unsafe.
quickly define the cell danger response for our audience, for the people who are first listening to our podcast, so they know what we're referring to?
Yeah, it's just when your body is kind of stuck in this kind of state where everything is a threat. And I was exactly there. And this could happen for many, many reasons. It could happen from shock. It could happen from trauma. It could happen from medical interventions. It could happen from over fasting and undernourishing and chronic exercise. Like there are,
Like a toxin assault.
it
Yeah.
could be overload of toxins. The toxic bucket gets too full, right? There are so many reasons of why your body can get stuck in the cell danger response. But it's like when your body is actually not able to. So like here's the way to explain it. Like say you drop a big beam on your foot, right? Your body's going to go into this healing phase, and that's going to create symptoms, right? So your body's going to send a lot of, it's going to get red, it's going to get swollen, it's going to be pain, but your body's actually sending nutrients and things to that space to actually heal it. And then it'll go into the healing phase and it'll be gone and it'll go away, and that's it, right? But when your body's stuck in the cell danger response, it's just in that kind of stressed out kind of, that's trying to solve it, but it never gets into the healing phase. It never turns over. It's just stuck in the symptom phase. And then you have chronic symptoms, right? And the body thinks everything is a threat because it's just so depleted with voltage energetically, right? And there's too much stress and all these things, but it never gets into the healing phase. And it just stays stuck in this, like, everything is a threat phase. And like you said before, our mitochondria are actually sentient beings. They're always sensing the environment, right? So all of a sudden, when they're too stressed and they're too low, their voltage is too low, that also will also cause them to be more in the cell danger response. So how you know you're in the cell danger response is when you respond so much to your environment. So I remember when heat was a stressor, cold was a stressor, every supplement was a stressor, every food was a stressor, every emotion was a stressor. It was like everything in my environment would make my body react. And then it's like,
It's exacerbating the existing
right,
inflammatory response.
you can't even like figure it out though, like what's causing it, because you're just so overburdened, right? And what I say, and we say this all the time, and I learned it from you before we were talking about the cell danger response. What does the body need to heal that? Can you hear me? Is safety signals, safety signals, safety signals, safety signals, abundance signals, right? That everything is okay, that you have food, you have your safety in your environment, you have good relationships, you have nature, you're rising and setting with the sun, you have the darkness, you have the correct rhythms. All of that provides the safety signals. Is it getting too windy? Can you hear me?
It's a little windy. Mhm.
Sorry.
It's intermittent. No, it's okay. I know you're getting your safety right now. So that's the thing, is we have to prioritize in our life like you're doing. It's a beautiful example right now, Vanessa, of you prioritizing. It's, because we're really more of, unfortunately, on the whole, in general, a culture of what superficiality. And I hate to say that, sounds so judgmental, but like, what does it look like? Like, oh my God, is there too many weeds in my yard? What are people going to think? Right? We're so worried about that kind of thing. But really, being unhealthy is a true threat to our survival. So it's like, pick what you want to do. Do you want to worry more about these external things like your possessions, or do you really want to have true health, vitality, joy, and then therefore internal peace? So you choosing to be outside, if I can say this right now, just as a case in point, you're illustrating for our audience. Well, if you're on YouTube, you're seeing this happening right now, that Vanessa's outside because she's getting nourished. She's getting her safety signals. I would be too if I could get my system set up. I'm working on it. I won't be in the sun because it's so hot here in the summer in the desert, but I would like to be able to, be in the outdoors while I'm working. Now, that might sound extreme to some people, but when you've been able to, like Vanessa and I have, move from being chronically ill and really distressed to actually finding some comfort because your body is getting the what it needs and you're working on your mental emotional space, you do prioritize certain things more than others. You're going to go outside, you're going to rest, you're going to go to bed early. And is it I know people think, "Oh, that's inconvenient. I can't go do the, I can't socialize, I can't do this." And it's like, "Well, you know what? You have to choose." So a lot of this safety I think we garner around the cell danger response is us being fully in charge, fully accountable, fully having agency about the choices that we're making. It's really, to me, a spiritual journey, if you will.
Oh my God, yes. Yes. And that you are like being outside, you're getting nourished. The light is nourishing, and it is sending safety signals. And it's so important. And I do prioritize that because the reason why I prioritize my health so much is because I know how bad my body felt, and I don't ever want to go back to that. And so yeah, I do prioritize it because it's important to me, because I don't want to feel like that ever again. So I'm going to do everything in my power to help my body feel nourished, safe, and well, and feel good each day, because nobody should live like that. Nobody. That's not even living the way I lived for a year. It's complete hell. And nobody should live like that. I know how dark things can be. And not everybody has experience in that, and that's beautiful. And I'm the type of person who thinks that certain souls are ready for that and certain souls aren't, and then maybe in your next life, or then like you're going to grow and you'll have those times to have those dark times, because I think we shouldn't fear the darkness or the dark times, because there are going to get us more stronger, more resilient, and change us. I am not the same person that I was 5 years ago. I never could be, and I never will be, because it's just not possible. Because when you go through something like I went through, it is not possible to be the same person on the other side. So I just feel like, yeah, when people look at me and they think some of the things I do are weird, like working outside or going to bed early or wearing blue blockers or using homeopathy, or, yeah, I used to tap and do EFT tapping, like all these things seem kind of odd, but that's the healing. You know what I mean? Like that's what brought me to healing. So that's why I do them. And
Well,
yeah,
healing is really about love and
yeah,
choosing to deeply nourish yourself,
yes,
no matter what anyone else is thinking,
right, and
because
not care.
that's what the ultimate and most profound level of safety is. Like, I have my own back. I am loving myself. I am nurturing myself, right? That's how we undo trauma. Because
Yes.
trauma really was about a disconnection from our bodies and our souls. And then
Mhm.
we have to resort to coping strategies. Depending on how disconnected we are, the more intense the coping strategy, right? To the point of self-injury and or self-extinction. Right. And so it's really about coming back home to ourselves, being able to give ourselves that nourishing love and to receive it from outside. You being outside is receiving that love. And that's, to me, is what helps to really turn this cell danger response around. And we start to see things so differently. We see our symptoms as signs of that we're in a position of being out of alignment with our higher self, with our spirit, our soul, whatever you want to call it. So we have to think about, these symptoms are not the problem. They're not the disease. They're not the issue. They're signs, right? That your body's saying, "Hey, something's not serving me. Something isn't helping me. It's taking energy away. Now I have a symptom." So this is a huge paradigm shift that we're presenting to you today, that it doesn't just start with medical gaslighting. It's like that's one of the sort of frameworks or views we're offering you as a portal to see what's possible for you if you're in a state of chronic health problems. And the other thing that I just want to say before we start to wrap it up, Vanessa, is that chronic health issues, when you've tried all the things, kind of like my visit with Morley, there are deeper underlying unresolved emotional issues. You have a disconnect from your soul. And it's not as hard as you think. Like, I was always like, how do I access this? What do I do? Right? It's about being able to see yourself
Yeah.
for who you are and the goodness that you are. There's an undoing of shame, there's a reconciliation with anger, and then you have to grieve. So, or you're invited to grieve. And so it's not that hard. We just have to be able to be witness. Sometimes we can't always do it by ourselves, especially if it's deep relational trauma. I think it's easier to get started with somebody who can witness you. That's what I do with my coaching clients. I don't even like the word coaching, but the clients I'm mentoring, is to be able to really deeply see them and slow it down so we can take stock in what is it that wants to come forward. And homeopathy as well is a beautiful modality to address the mental, emotional underpinnings of the manifestation of chronic illness and these symptoms that the syndrome. Any syndrome means we don't know what's really going on. Well, what's really going on is your energy's blocked, and
Yep.
there's probably something most likely deeper that, and it could be ancestral too, which homeopathy can access,
Mhm.
right? It's just generationally transmitted. So that's what I want to leave listeners with, is that you have many options besides allopathy, besides just, doing the same thing and doing it harder and jumping from
Supplementing.
practitioner to practitioner. Try something that's going to get to the deepest level.
When you said that, it made me think of our podcast that we recorded yesterday with Dana. It's like there's a knot somewhere in the field that just needs to be untangled.
Yes.
Tangle that knot, we're going to be able to open the door to more healing.
And
And
sound therapy can do that too.
yeah, sound
Gregory Glick, our episode with him, you guys take a listen to that. He did an
beautiful.
actual tuning in our podcast, so you can get a free tuning. It's basically using sound to untangle those knots that are preventing us from healing.
Yeah, and homeopathy is great, and all the lifestyle things that we're talking about with circadian biology and all of that is really supportive. There's myofascial release, there's EFT, there's EMDR. There are so many things that you can do to untangle those knots. You just have to define what resonates for you. And I loved how you were talking about like the symptoms are not bad. They're just the messengers, right? They're an opportunity for growth. They're an opportunity and a chance for you to say, well, what's not serving me in my life? What's not working, right? Just to think about it a little bit. And it opens the door to like a new change and a new opportunity for growth, because on the other side, there is going to be growth and you are going to shift and you are going to be better than you were before, right? So that's the whole thing, right? And yeah, I mean, I love working with coaching, like coaching, mentor clients, whatever you want to call it. Like I love supporting people that way and really holding that space and possibility for them and really, you know, just trying to guide them in the direction that they kind of already know they need to go, but helping them see that, helping them see the directions and the ways that they can support their health in their body and get themselves getting more safety and more healing, getting themselves more in the healing phase. And I definitely utilize homeopathy for all the ancestral trauma and all of the trauma that they've dealt with and all of the suppression that they've had in their life with medications and whatnot, because all of that really is playing a huge role, and we kind of need to remove those knots or those bricks, whatever you want to call them, out of our system so we can get into the healing phase. Homeopathy is a way to get out of the cell danger response. I've seen that in myself, I've seen it in clients, because it will push you into the healing phase again, because it removes one of those knots or those bricks or whatever you want to call it. It removes them, and then you're all of a sudden you're in the healing phase. So yeah, it's really, really great. And I just want people to know that like healing is possible, and really that nobody knows your body better than you too. So always move towards what resonates. I think that is really, really important. And if somebody says something to you, whether they want you to take something, whether they want you to do something, if you're like, someone says, oh, never drink cold water, but you love cold water, like, I don't know, maybe you want to think about maybe why your body's doing that for a reason. There's always a reason. That's a symptom, and there's a reason for that. And the body is wise. So I think it's always tuning in, and whether, like, I always say, I don't know if this is helpful or not for people, but like, I met with a lot of people on my healing journey, right? Take the little pieces, right, that resonate and put them together and put together for you, right? I find, because you will learn things from other people, but the only person that really heals you is you. There is no guru, right? It's really you, you know. So listen to your body's innate wisdom, you know. And I also would say that the more disconnected we are from nature, the more we're in the hustle culture, the more that we're in the unreal world versus the real world, I guess is the way to describe it. The less strong that antenna will be. And you want your antenna to be really strong. So connecting, and a lot of the work that we do teaches people how to make their antenna stronger. So then they can actually tap into that intuition and innate wisdom again in a better way. So yeah, I think that's really, really clutch, because I've seen that get stronger and stronger within myself as the years of healing have happened.
Yep, same here. It's really a process of coming home to yourself. So
Yes, I love that, coming home. But is
thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Please go to our websites, brightlightwellness.com and lightenmood.com, if you'd like to book a session with either Vanessa or myself. See our YouTube channels, same Bright Light Wellness and Enlightened Mood, and send us a message, give us some feedback. How did this land? You can find our emails as well on our websites or contact form. So we'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you next week.
yeah, bye guys.